Today we're at the show talking about soybean cyst nematode, and soybean cyst nematode is the largest robber of yield for soybean farmers in Nebraska. And this worm-like animal just lives in soil and feeds on the soybean root system. So you can't always see symptoms of soybean cyst nematode, but what you'll usually see are many times yield reduction that you can't really explain. The main things that we look for for soybean farmers as far as what we're seeing for symptom, sometimes you can see some nutrient deficiency, but that's in situations where you have really high populations. But most of the time we'll see some pockets in the field if you've got a yield monitor that maybe didn't yield as well, or maybe just that whole field isn't yielding well as you think it should, and your corn yields are fine or going up. That's an indication that would be a time to sample for soybean cyst nematode. Another would be if you have sudden death syndrome show up in your field, which we're seeing more and more of in the state. That disease also moves with soil, which is what cyst nematode moves with. So that's something also that would suggest this would be a good time to look for cyst nematode and see if you have it in the field. Yield losses associated with cyst nematode typically, when we've grown resistant and susceptible varieties in comparison over the year in that 5 to 6 bushel per acre on average, we've seen up to 38% loss in fields with sands and higher populations. So, and the biggest thing is to try to identify this before you have really high populations, because at some point you get to the point where you really shouldn't grow soybean in the field, and that's once you get into those over 20,000 type zones. And when we talk about numbers, we're talking about the number of eggs of this organism per 100 cc's of soil typically. So like about a half of a coffee cup of those little bank styrofoam coffee cups that we see. And when we're looking at eggs, we've got the life cycle here. We can see this in the back. This would be a female. Her body's actually filled with eggs once she's fertilized. And some of these eggs that we see here, you can see those come out and reinfect the soybean crop again. And then actually as she matures, she becomes this kind of brown colored body that's the cyst. And that's the persistent structure for soybean cyst nematode. And that's why once you have it in the field, you always have it in the field. But by managing it and keeping those populations lower, that's going to give you the ability to keep it in control and maintain sustainable soybean yield. Soybean Farmers Checkoff Dollars through the Nebraska Soybean Board fund a program that we run at the University of Nebraska that's a sampling program. So we have soil sample bags available. If you will, you can get those through if you come to Husker Harvest Days, or also through any of our Nebraska Extension offices in the counties. Those would be available. You can pick those up, just put some soil in the bag and send that in, and we'll process that and get you the results, and then you're going to know if you have cyst nematode or not, and then you can take the steps you need to manage it.